What's going on, Jerk Faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. Yes, we're back with another show for you tonight. And as always, co-piloting this thing with me is the homeboy Rob.
What's going on?
Yes, and we, as always, we have a fun and hopefully informative show for you tonight.
Fun, definitely. Informative, sometimes.
Sometimes. Usually more ranty than, and I think tonight will be no exception.
You know what really grinds my gears?
It's like M&M's. Like, why are you guys fighting about which M goes first? You're both M's.
It's true.
All right. Anyways, tonight we have the usual movie review, and then also the two topics or news stories that that have been kind of either weighing on our minds and hearts, or just we feel are important enough to talk about on the show. But before we get into all that, let's do a little of the small talk.
Let's see. What's been going on this week? Not a whole lot outside of the normal things. My birthday time. Like obviously we did our birthdays were a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really get a whole lot of time to do much celebrating outside of eating at some places.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, it's been pretty good. It's just mainly been work, just catching up on. I've been able to listen to a lot of my podcasts that I listen to. Actually, one in particular that's been pretty exciting. I've been listening to one called Sports Wars, and it's kind of talks about like certain rivalries or whatever throughout sports and
right. I remember yesterday when we met up to record the main podcast. We went to go eat afterwards. You played some for us. And and then the one that we were listening to was about the Shaq Kobe rivalry.
Oh god, yeah, it was great, and just like listening through that, and because you also get some of the behind the scenes stuff of what was happening,
right?
And and it's very fascinating. The one I listened to this morning was the one on Tyson and Holyfield.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole I didn't realize how like connected they had known each other for so long, and how I thought it was just kind of because I guess I was a little bit young at that time, not really heavily into boxing, but the learning how they essentially kind of like grew up in very similar fashion and
similar backgrounds, similar upbringings.
Yeah, and because at the time when Tyson fought Holyfield, that was after the whole his time in prison, and I thought it was just more of like a throwing Tyson kind of throwing him a bone to fight Holyfield. That's why he bit his ear off, because he's a crazy man.
Mm-hmm.
But no, there was a hell of a lot more to it, and kind of learning that story, I was like, I kind of want to go back and like watch some of these fights.
It's funny. I just missed the press conferences.
Yeah.
The whole I'm gonna eat your babies, and call. I don't think it was necessarily directed towards Holyfield, but he was calling another fighter like a faggot. It's like, oh, I'm gonna fuck you till you love me.
That's right.
And it's like, in that scenario, which one of the two of you is the gay one?
Exactly. But it's it was really just fascinating. It's been kind of fascinating to another one that I listened to is like the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa home run race, and how that all came about. and that it's just really fascinating stuff. I think learning about like sports and like some of the going back and learning some of the stories, that's why I like sports so much, just because it's a lot of fun. And obviously, there's a lot more controversy now with some of the sports that like especially like NFL, NBA. But going back and watching the old stuff and hearing the old stories and learning stuff that you didn't know beforehand, I think is pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, particularly recently, there was some sports stuff, but we might touch on it later, if there's time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this weekend for me it was pretty relaxed. God, what did I even do?
It was so relaxed you can't even remember.
Yeah, just one of those weekends. No, wait, I did do something, but for the life of me, I just can't think of it.
Well, we did have like those damn like that forest fire, that brush fire that
right.
last week.
Yeah, that's right. That's it's so funny how fast like the news seems to cycle nowadays.
Yeah, I can't keep up. Like, oh, okay, so actually, I don't. Something that was kind of exciting from last week, because I forgot that was last week. God, it feels like it was 100 years ago already.
Right.
So I think it was on Wednesday of last week. We had at work, we had power was gone the whole day.
That's right. That's right.
And I don't know how much of Chatsworth was affected, but we had like the whole for like a block or so of Devonshire completely out of power. So
yeah, no, I mean, I'm not too far away from your works, but yeah, we weren't affected at all.
that's crazy. Like, I mean, I'm glad that you weren't affected. But yeah, no, the crazy part was because I still had to go when I was called. They called me and it's like, hey, power's out at work, and I was thinking like, oh, good, I get a day off. It's like,
right. It's like, no, but you still gotta come in.
Yeah, I still had to come in. I was like, fuck, why? But just in case, had the power come back on, they would have did me, and so once I got there, I was like, there is no way in hell, like, because they weren't even like close to being, they weren't even close to getting that power back on, because I guess there was a bunch of down power lines that were like, I guess they got cut or something like that, or like
right, yeah. There was a lot of wind. There was like the Santa Ana's kicked up.
Yeah.
Last week as well.
Yeah, so they were nowhere near getting that set back. So I was at work for 2 hours. It was one of the few times where I've gone to work and there was nothing I could do. So I was like, I just kind of bullshitted for 2 hours and I drove home. But it was weird because there was other pockets of the valley that had like power out. So traffic was just insane. So I spent more time on the road getting to work and going home than I was actually at work. So that sucked.
I just remembered what I did. Well, in the morning on Saturday, I went to go renew my driver's license. It was actually pretty nice because what is it? I went to one of those DMV places where what is it? They only handle like a specific thing, and then in this case, this particular office only dealt with like driver's licenses. So it's not like like where you can take care of all of your DMV needs, like like tags or registration or testing or things like that. It's like specifically just driver's licenses. Yeah, out in Pacoima, the office actually moved. It actually used to be located in Granada Hills, but I don't know, for some reason they moved a little bit more northeastwardly. Um, but yeah, I was kind of chatting up the young lass, that was helping me, and she was telling me how, she was like kind of like running around getting things because she's told me that the office had only opened that Monday. Um, yeah, so it's like really brand new. But yeah, I was in and out like in maybe 30 to 35 minutes. No, yeah, I
Yeah,
was
no,
really surprised because I was expecting to like be there for at least an hour. Um, but I guess because this DMV office is hyper specific and what it does. Um, it's able to process people a lot quicker.
that's not a yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, the one that the DMV that I go to,
Mm-hmm.
they're pretty good too. Actually, they're pretty surprisingly somewhat efficient, and
Mm-hmm.
damn it, I can't believe it. They're actually helpful.
Yeah, they don't. They're not. They don't have dead eyes. You know.
No, yeah, like they actually like have life in their eyes, and were actually very friendly and nice and helpful. I was like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Yeah, and I was a little bit worried too because they're they are switching to like those real IDs, which you can use to at least like fly domestically. Yeah, like kind of like use it as a passport.
Yeah,
But it's more geared towards domestic flying. Um, and I was just a little worried that I wasn't able to get one because I was like I didn't think I had enough documents,
hmm
but it turns out it was fine. I just had to show I had to bring my birth certificate, um, social security card, proof of address. Um, two different sources of yeah. So you need four documents for the real idea. ID is and it's birth certificate, social security card, and two letters proving residence. So just
right,
like
right,
water, power bill, cable bill, credit card bill, anything that has your name and address on it.
right, right.
Yeah, and I was afraid that because I misplaced my social security card.
Oh,
Yeah, and so I was like, oh crap! I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but luckily I had this old pay receipt from when I used to work for the Department of Rehabilitation, and it had my was a social security number on it, and it had my address on it. So it was like a twofer. But yeah, when I went down there, they said, yeah, we'll take like if you want to use this pay stub, because if you can't, if you're like in the similar situation as me and you can't find your social security card, you can use a pay stub, and it doesn't matter like if it's current year or not. I use an old one because nowadays I rarely have to fill out a pay stub. I rarely get pay stubs, or or I deal. My work deals a lot with just in cash.
yeah. So, but yeah, the process was to get those real IDs. It wasn't all that hard. It was pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Um,
I was
I
just
didn't have a
confused more truthfully because uh, I noticed that on my driver's license it said that this was the year that I was going to expire, but I didn't get any mailers about getting the real ID or having to renew my license.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. It's like that was the one thing that was kind of weird because they never really talked about that. But I knew that was coming up, so I was like, well, why don't I just instead of coming here twice, why don't I just make sure that I have everything for the real ID, because that was an option for me. So that's what I was like, I'll just do
Right,
that.
especially right, because especially since they're like gonna mandate it in the after this year.
Right, yeah. It's starting in 2020, like it's mandatory to have those.
Yeah.
But no, that's pretty awesome. I didn't even know that they did like specialty like DMVs where it's like it's only dealing with like a particular division.
Yeah, or specific need. Yeah, but that's it's so funny is we always complain. You always use the DMV as an example of just like utter like mediocrity.
Right.
But
Yeah,
here
that's
here's a situation where they actually they've actually improved on their services, and and yeah, like I would I don't I've only been there once, but from the general sense of like uh, camaraderie between that I saw amongst the workers, I'd say they're their eyes haven't glazed over yet.
that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, and then also, yeah, I just remember because it ties into one of the things we're going to talk about. Today, but I also went to go watch the movies, and find out which movie I watched. Just stick around, and you'll find out.
Yeah, well, it's I'm gonna try to go see that this week. I don't know when I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna try.
Right. Yeah, and for those of you who might have guessed the movie by the title we have up in the description. Don't worry. We won't be talking about spoilers. We're not gonna like be reviewing it. We're just gonna and there's not gonna be any spoilers.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Then Saturday. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, well, should we? What topic should we dive into first?
Um. I mean, I guess since it's gonna be a short one, I guess we could, and then since I've already brought it up, I guess we could talk about the movie. Not the usual movie review, but the movie that I was
Right.
talking about. Yeah. So yeah.
Specifically, the controversy behind it.
Exactly. And so yeah. Saturday night, I went and watched the movie The Joker, not The Joker, but Joker. Um, and it was a good movie. It was a great, I think it was a great character study. Um, I think they either borrowed or just straight up copied too many beats from the movie Taxi Driver, which a lot of people have been making the comparison to, and I think that is apt. That is an apt comparison. Um, but overall, yeah, it's a fantastic movie. I highly recommend it. Definitely should go. You should definitely go watch it. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but I just wanted to touch upon some of the controversy. Having actually seen the movie, and I honestly don't know what the big hubbub is about.
I think a lot of times it's just people, especially on this weird like woke leftism, where they center in on like a particular outrage day.
Mm-hmm.
This being the flavor of the month, and because like it either doesn't fit the narrative or something, or they think that somebody shoots their mouth off and then other people start believing it, and they just make shit up and stuff that's not true, and they create all this outrage for something that doesn't really need to be there. And
right, and I think because they are labeling this like oh, this is like incel rage and the rise of the incel and things like that. It's like and and it's just because like this guy who takes care of his mom, his mom who's of ailing health, and who's a little bit weird, well, a lot of it weird, but initially you can't really tell. Yeah, he's a little off, but just nothing to really worry about. But yeah, they made him out to be like this, like they made him out to be the Isla Vista shooter, basically.
well, and here's the other thing that like kind of pisses me off, and because there's a lot of it's not just like this, but where people think that like, oh, movies and games and whatever, they influence people in a bad way. And certainly if you can decipher between reality and fiction, that's a problem. Maybe you shouldn't be going watching movies or playing games because you can't figure out reality, and you should find help because you'll need it. You need it. And I know, like referencing Taxi Driver, that was a movie where a complete insane person who had a hard time deciphering between reality and fiction, cited that this movie was, his motivation for shooting Ronald Reagan to try to impress Jodie Foster. And
right, yeah.
But yeah, like all the violence, like it's like, oh, it's the video games, it's the movies, and people we can't have this stuff because people are gonna be influenced in a bad way. It's like,
Right.
no, they're not.
It's an old story. I mean, it goes back all I mean, contemporarily, it goes back to like Elvis Presley.
Oh yeah,
You know.
goddamn those.
Yeah. I mean, that's why when he made that debut on Ed Sullivan, they only shot him from like the chest up because of all the gyrating hip, all his gyrations, and they were worried that it was going to inspire lustful thoughts in the young people. But yeah, this movie. I mean, the idea that that this movie was exceptionally violent. I can honestly say that there was maybe three extraordinarily violent scenes.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe four, 3 to 4 exceptionally violent scenes. Um, but you didn't have the same kind of moral panic or concern when John Wick came out, and there's like, and a lot of bodies dropped in that movie. Gallons of fake blood was used in the making of those movies. But no one was concerned that someone was gonna commit a John Wick style shooting.
Yeah, it's like it's one of those things too where it's like and even like the outrage or the concern, I get people. No, they're not. They're not. It's all fake. Like they don't actually believe that. It's just a way to find a way to control people and to like stop them from doing things that they enjoy, being successful, all this stuff. It's to promote fear, that just to keep people in control. That's what it is.
Right, and also I think it was because the director Todd Phillips, and initially, I was a little annoyed by him because some of the initial takes that he had. Um, but I'm coming around to like respecting the dude because I mean, for those of you unaware, Todd Phillips, he was the guy that was behind Hangover,
Yeah,
and Old
the first
School
one being pretty funny.
and Old School.
He did. I didn't know he did Old School.
Yeah, he did, and those are comedy classics. The first Hangover, not the subsequent films. But
Right.
yeah, the first Hangover and Old School, those are comedy classics, right? Um, and he said like, oh, I've stopped doing comedy because everyone, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said that he stopped doing comedies because everyone's now like such a sensitive ass bitch.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's like they say, yeah, I mean, what he really said was to the effect of like, yeah, you can't make comedies anymore because someone is always gonna, find, what is it? Someone is not gonna find it funny, or they think that you're attacking people, or it's just basically not the right environment to try and do comedy these days. Is what he's
Yeah,
ultimately trying to say.
because I was reading like his like interview on that, so I was like, the guy's like, I'm fed up with these people. I'm just gonna. That's why I kind of shifted over to doing more dark movies because I'm just comedy's dead,
Mm-hmm.
and I think in a way too, like why he switched over to a dark because he's probably a man who loves comedy and trying to make people laugh and making things that are enjoyable for people.
Mm-hmm.
But because that's essentially in this day and age is dead, so something that he loved has been killed, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of shifted him into kind of giving us more of these psychological, dark type of films.
Right, and I think yeah, it's all over that movie, especially because um, the character that Robert De Niro plays, the late night talk show host. It's kind of telling a contemporary story of how there's like the approved comedians, the ones who are able to speak on such things, and yeah, Robert De Niro's character does kind of play like this kind of authority figure because he kind of lambasts the Joker character for his attempts at comedy.
Right.
And so that parallels to our society right now where you have people who say like, oh, you can't make fun of this group of people, you can't make fun of this, you can't make fun of that. um, you know uh, what is it, yeah, only like only approved people can do comedy, which is sometimes not even comedy. It's just this butch looking short haired.
Self-deprecation is self-humiliation. I'm
Right,
not
yeah,
doing
like
comedy.
it's like yeah, this butch looking short haired lesbian chick who's says that self deprecation is what is it, self
It's
deprecation is like self mutilation or something like that.
humiliation. It's like it's essentially like, oh, you're talking down about yourself, and it's all about this like positive self-esteem. It's like, listen, like if you don't want to do comedy anymore, that's fine, but don't stand up and philosophize to me and like air out all your laundry in this quote unquote comedy special. Like it's just
I
it's
know.
like
I
how
mean, yeah, it's because what they don't understand is comedy is a release valve for for the tension and the stress that builds up in societies. So and someone has to come out and say it, and once that is said, and everyone could laugh at it, it no longer becomes a point of contention, a sore spot, or what have you. I mean, if I wasn't able to be self-deprecating and make fun of, my hands, I would have blown my brains out a long time ago.
I would have. Yeah, I would have 13 reasons why is my 13 reasons why quite a while ago. If that was
Yeah.
the case,
I mean, I crack jokes, I crack jokes about, I self-deprecate all the time. And I go, like, one example, I go to, when I go to like clothing stores or sporting goods stores and I see gloves, I take one and I go to the clerk and I go, oh, excuse me, can you help me? I can't seem to find my size.
that's
right. And so the first thing, the clerk kind of gets like this weird, like, uncomfortable look on their faces, and it's like, just relax, buddy. I'm just doing a bit. And then they start laughing, and we're both laughing, and it's no longer a thing. It's no longer this thing that's hanging in the air.
Well, and that's actually like when we first met. I was kind of obviously like I noticed that your hands were different, but I wasn't like gonna bring anything up. But like once I heard you like kind of making fun of yourself about it, I was like, all right, this guy is cool. We can be friends.
Yeah, cause like, what if I, how awful would it have been if I was like such a downer about it and just, and like, acted like really insecure and just like, are you making fun of me? And, got into your face and was like, it's like, how dare you? How dare you? How absolutely dare you? Like, and, we probably, this show wouldn't exist.
Just like the was it that short man that was went off of all these women that are supposedly making fun of him or something.
Right? Yeah. It's like, bro, you're short. All right, your knee, you're just taller than a what is it, Oompa Loompa. All right, get over it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And like when he said like, oh, like these women, they tell me I should, they ask me like, how am I even alive? And it's like, well, maybe what if they were just curious? Because what if maybe they're wondering why the Oompa Loompa monster hadn't come and gobbled you up.
Why aren't you working in some chocolate factory?
I know. Why aren't you working at some crazy man's chocolate factory right now? But but also, like, if we are to take him seriously, and like women have said that to him, what did he say to them to elicit that response?
Exactly, because I mean, outside of like, yeah, there are certainly assholes out there that'll just kind of shoot off at the mouth without really thinking. Sure, but I guarantee that the majority of that stuff was brought on for some reason, where it's like they were fed up with this guy's attitude, and I think it was more often he was the jackass.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like all this like quote unquote moral outrage on all this stuff, it's all horseshit. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I mean, like, this whole backlash against this Joker movie is just because Todd Phillips has gone off reservation, and he's going against the narrative, and so that's why right now, despite having a extremely high audience score, the critic rating is like, I think, like 33%.
That's a lot higher than it was a couple of weeks ago, at least.
Right? Yeah. But I mean, again, it's just utter hypocrisy.
Well, it was funny how I saw a really funny tweet about this where it's like everyone's up in arms about like the Joker and stuff, but just like a few years ago, the Academy Award winner was some woman who fucked a fish.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I didn't like that movie. I watched The Shape of Water, and I was like, this woman is fucking a fish, and it's like, and it's not, and like and like the supposed intelligence is of this like fish man was basically on par with a gorilla. You know,
Right.
because she was like teaching it how to sign, and it was like able to recognize. It was able to like mimic, and then eventually, also communicate back through sign language. But it was still like mostly like an animal because it wasn't like it was displaying like higher uh, what is it, intelligence. It was just like kind of more like instinctual. Because there was a scene where they're like the guy that's helping them hide the fish person has a cat, and then the cat like freaked out, and then like the fish person like attacked and like ate the cat.
Right.
And I don't know about you, not too many people react that. People of higher intelligence react in that manner.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that woman was like a descendant of Troy McClure.
Or an ancestor.
Are you gay? I wish. If I was gay, it's like it'd be no problem.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
So
Man, that movie was hot garbage. I mean, as much as as much as I respect uh, Guillermo del Toro's like vision, like that story was utter garbage.
yeah, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I need to watch this, and I didn't.
Yeah, and low key, I thought this was gonna be like Abe Sapien origin story. The fishman from Hellboy.
Oh, see, and I was thinking it was kind of like a you know, kind of more like the creature from the Black Lagoon, something like that. That's what I thought that they were dealing with, and
Yeah,
then
I could see
I was
that
like,
too.
oh well, that sounds awesome. Maybe I'll check that out. And then I heard everything that was going on. I was like, oh no, I don't need to watch that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I only assumed that it was an origin story for Abe Sapien is because it was Guillermo del Toro. Because
Right, right.
he directed the first two Hellboy movies, um, and then when I initially saw like the trailers and stuff, I was like, oh, so we're gonna get a Abe Sapien kind of origin story or backstory. Nope.
So the actually was it uh there was speaking of Guillermo del Toro, it's kind of a little bit of a little bit of a sidetrack, but he was slated to do. Have you heard of the game designer Hideo Kojima?
Vaguely.
He's most notably famous for he worked used to work for Konami. He did which was like the Metal Gear Solid series.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, he initially Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro were going to be working on a new game for Konami. It was like a horror game with the guy who plays Daryl in the Walking Dead. Uh, I forget his first name, but Reedus is his last name, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's actually one of they did like they finished like a good portion of the game. Like they had a demo out, which is one of the highest played demos that was out there. But then they ended up like canceling the project because Kojima was let go from Konami. But I think that there's a game coming out next month that Kojima created his own studio, and it's coming out with a game called Death Stranding. And I think Guillermo del Toro was working on that game with him. So if you're looking for some Guillermo del Toro stuff, I think he worked on Death Stranding as well, like as far as writing the story and whatnot. Because it is kind of seems like it's going to be a very odd type of game, so it's going to be interesting. But what's crazy about that is that from what I understand in the game, is that people are gaining power from these fetuses that they have to carry around with them, and it's and like it's like they're sucking the life out of. They like make these fetuses with like what appears to be like human children, and people are like using that to like gain powers, and they have to. It's really weird. So I'm kind of curious to try it out, and it seems pretty kind of with like everything that's going on with the whole like abortion movement going on. It's kind of it kind of feels like they might be telling that type of story.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, just to put a bow on it. Yeah, the Joker movie was great. Definitely would recommend it. Don't know what the whole I don't know what the whole hubbub was about. Um, and I think it was it John Wayne Gacy? Who was the one that dressed like a clown? That was John Wayne Gacy, right?
Yeah, it's John Wayne Gacy where he was kidnapping kids and like chopping them up and stuffing them in his basement. Yeah, that was
Right,
John Wayne
right, right.
Gacy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like an interview, he said, he was saying like, yeah, it's like in one of like the last interviews that he gave is like he was, they asked him like, oh, did you watch like violence porn and things like that, and did it have contributory or was it contributory to your life as a serial killer? And he set them straight. He was like straight up, yes, I did watch violence porn, but no, it had no effect on me because killing those kids.
Yeah, it's like he was just evil. It's like
Yeah, it's pure
it's
evil.
like
Because I think that's what ultimately it comes down to. Like the left doesn't recognize that there is evil. They just like kind of like relativize everything. It's like, oh, well, this person isn't as bad as this person, or this ideology isn't as bad as that ideology. So there's no like, there is no black and white for them. You know.
yeah. I mean, it's their whole worldview is just it's skewed.
Mm-hmm. So that's why they can't understand how a work of art, is no more effective than than anything else. Because then if you concede the if we concede the point that depictions of violence or explicit lyrics have an effect or a deleterious effect on an individual, then the opposite it has to be true as well.
Right.
Beautiful depictions of art or uplifting lyrics can bring people out of dark places or inspire people to do good things. It has to be able to work the other way around then too.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's like just my recommendation for people is like don't buy into like the fake outrage. If you're only hearing like uh, an overwhelmingly one side to a story and you're not hearing anything else about it, like any positives or anything like that, it's usually complete horseshit.
Mm.
I'm not saying every time because something obviously there are some times where it's like, I think we can all agree it's like, yeah, you know what, that's pretty bad, but um, for the most
Right.
part, it's
Right.
bullshit.
When you're only hearing one side and it's the same thing, it's like, oh, it's horrible. It'll inspire killers. Blah 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 blah. Then you might want to look into it first. All right, that's all I have to say about that. So let's move into your story. Um,
Well,
so take it away.
I think so my story is, well, thankfully I didn't subject myself to watching this monstrosity. But if you did, there was a I think it was last week, there was a town hall, the Alphabet People town hall on, I think it was CNN or MSNBC or something like that, but they had all the Democrat candidates, kowtowing to the Alphabet People, and now in one of the candidates in particular, who will never be president ever, but his ideas are, what the left wants, and it was Beto O'Rourke talking about how he was asked the question, should churches, schools, or organizations who don't support same-sex marriage, like, should they lose their tax-exempt status? And of course he answered, although he doesn't actually believe anything in ever, it's because he's one of the most fake people. But he was saying that, we should none of these organizations should have any benefits or rewards for this belief, not believing in this or supporting this stuff. And I was like, okay, you're obviously bashing churches and anything Christian, because that was kind of the whole point. I mean, there was a lot of church bashing going on throughout this town hall, and but in my mind I was like, what would happen if they were, because it's not just churches that believe that. You have other religious institutions who do not in any way agree with this homosexuality and stuff like that. If Beta was willing to go to door to door, as we were talking about this today, if he was willing to go door to door to mosques and Islamic temples and stuff, and tell them that they couldn't, they would lose their tax exempt status for not supporting same-sex marriage, there would be riots in the streets from the left, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, we also talked, about his, support or advocacy for, gun confiscation, and again, and I made the same, I made this similar to the mosque thing. I said, like, yeah, I'd be, I'd only accept that if he personally went to each and every person's house and demanded their guns.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen, so it doesn't matter. And what is it? During our conversation during the day, when we were talking about this, I had noted that Beto O'Rourke, or Robert Francis O'Rourke, at least that's what his mama calls him. What is it? He's the epitome of the kid that eats worms to get attention in elementary school.
It's like,
because again, he says like the most idiotic things possible, but I mean demanding that or saying that he's gonna mandate that every law-abiding person hand over their guns, or he's gonna make it illegal for churches not to accept or teach or whatever, or institutions to teach about gay sex and or whatever. It's like, all right, okay, but you have to do all of that yourself. You have to go to each and every door, knock on it and say, please give me your guns. Or you have to go to every church, every synagogue, every temple, every mosque, and say, like, you guys are homophobes. You need to stop it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, because that's never going to happen.
Right. And again, like, he's one of those people. I mean, I've said it before too. Like, people without belief will always try to use belief against believers. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. It's like, oh well, I thought Jesus taught about love and acceptance and blah blah blah. And it's like, yes, he did, but he didn't say ever take pride in sin.
Yeah, well, that's same thing. This is listening to everything that was kind of that was said there. It is essentially the serpent in the garden. Where it's like it's not just outright saying trying to outright lying or whatever, but they're manipulating the language just enough where it's like, oh, that sounds right. Yeah, that sounds like something that's the
Right, yeah,
the
it is.
Bible.
You're exactly right. Because the serpent was like,
And
did God really say that you die if you ate from that tree? Are you sure?
yeah, I mean, and that's what's going on, and the problem is like because there's a lot of Christians who don't actually read their Bible, they don't actually have a good fundamental knowledge. Yeah, they're lured in by this, and they end up, and that that's I talk about that a lot with my students. It's like you guys have got to like be reading this stuff. Uh, for if not for yourself, like we have to be defenders of the faith. We can't be. There's so many like snakes and wolves that are trying to kill us that you have to know what's going on. You can't be fooled by stuff like this because if I didn't know what I know, if I didn't know the Bible as well as I do, yeah, it all sounds pretty. It's like yeah, that sounds right, and then you end up like falling down this hole that you lose sight of who you are. You lose the way.
Mm-hmm. Right, because in like the epistles, Paul talks about sexual immorality. That's not just homosexuality. That's affairs. That's cheating. Um, it's sex out of wedlock. It's all the things. It's not just talking about homosexuality. He said he didn't, and he didn't. I mean, he does, and he also specifies homosexuality, but he also specifies sexual immorality.
Right,
And
yeah,
that covers a multitude, not just homosexuality.
yeah, because it's all the the idea of like having concubines, multiple wives,
Mm-hmm.
just incest, you name it, like all the horrible
Right, yeah,
things.
like what was it, the letter to Corinth, where stepsons were having sex with their stepmothers.
Yeah,
And they're like, and they, and again, they did like the whole serpent thing where they like rationalized it. It was like, well, she's not really my mom.
yeah. It's yeah, it's we
They're like
find ways.
they're pulling the Greg Brady.
Yeah, I mean we find ways. Yeah, we as humans we find little ways to like rationalize the sins in our life, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean I'm guilty of that too. Like
Yeah, I
we
mean, so
all
am I.
um
And I'm working on that every single day. I'm trying to die to myself a little bit more than the previous day. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. But again, the struggle is what brings strength.
right, and yeah, I see this and it's like I mean there's nothing new under the sun. It's just it's wrapped up in a different package, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the same evil that's trying to circumvent and control things. And but yeah, it was all Christian and church bashing and using uh, the young children meat shields that they have to just disgusting.
Yeah, and I mean,
But
it's using the gun of the state to, make people comply. That's all it
right,
is.
but like I said, if the fact that there's he said, oh, other organizations and stuff, like there's anything else out there, but they were specifically talking about Christianity, like, because
Of
that's the
course,
left
yeah,
is Christianity.
Beta, go to a mosque, go to a mosque and call the congregation homophobes. I dare you.
So yeah, I mean that would be what I'm hoping is that someone will, reporter worth his weight will actually go up and like ask that question. So like, obviously you were talking about like churches and all this stuff. What about you know, is Islamic temples and the mosques? Like, would they lose their status too under your ideas? And I guarantee they'll find a way to weasel out of that
Yeah,
answer.
he'd be backpedaling faster than Michael Jackson doing the moonwalk.
Now, guys like Beto who have no backbone, if he actually like said like, yeah, I was like, all right, well, hey, at least you're consistent.
Yeah, I mean, if that happened, I would have been like, respects the respects the view, respects the Beta
Like, all right,
Aurora.
maybe you do have a spine somewhere.
I know, yeah. If he said, yeah, if that question was asked, like, okay, what about mosques? What about Muslims? Because in their holy book, they call homosexuality an abomination as well.
Yeah.
So will they lose their tax exempt status? And if he said yes, straight up yes, any institution that that does not support LGBT, XYZ, then they'll lose their tax exempt status. I was like, okay, respects.
Yeah.
You're still an idiot, but respects.
Yeah, right. So I'm really hoping that some reporter worth his weight will kind of jam that question in their direction. Just to because I always like seeing their hypocrisy exposed. it makes me happy.
Right, just puts a smile on your face. Let's put a smile on that face.
Yeah, but yeah, that's all I that was to me kind of because obviously like Christianity, theology, all that stuff's really important to me, and it's just like, wow. I mean, we're when I was younger, people people who were older than me, Christians who were older than me, that saying like, oh, you know, Christianity will be under attack someday, and like all this stuff is, you gotta study hard, you gotta fight for the faith, and I was like, I don't know, attack, it's like not in this country. Well, it's coming, and it's like, well, they were right. So it's kind of, we gotta pick up that sword. We have to defend the faith, and seeing this stuff, it's like,
we definitely take the freedoms. Well, at least American Christians definitely take the freedoms that we enjoy for granted. And even though, like, I think recently, there was a survey or there was a study done, and Christians are the most persecuted people in the world.
Yeah, more Christians have been slaughtered in I think like the 20th and 21st centuries than ever before.
Yeah, in the history of the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was like that, that basically genocide in Africa that nobody talked about. And the constant like Christians who face persecution in Iran, Iraq, that whole region.
They're dead.
Yeah, they're dead. Again, it doesn't get talked about.
I mean, Egypt, like the Coptic Christians, those guys are essentially non-existent now too, because they've all been killed. It's crazy, but that's the thing, nobody talks about that. It's like, oh, that's nothing. That doesn't count. Like when ISIS was burning Christians alive in cages, no one really talked about that. Just crazy.
All right. Well, let's get on to something a little bit lighter. And let's round out our evening with the movie review. And tonight, this week, the movie that we're going to be reviewing is Ben-Hur, in keeping with our Charlton Heston month.
God damn, it's good.
Yeah, it's really good. All right, just a quick synopsis. Epic drama about an aristocratic Jew living in Judea who incurs the wrath of a childhood friend, now Roman tribune. Although forced into slavery on a galley and compelled to witness the cruel persecution of his family, he survives, harboring dreams of vengeance. A battle at sea and the chariot race are among the memorable sequences. The film used 300 sets of Roman Cinecittà studios and won a record 11 Oscars.
Because this movie came out in '59, I believe.
59, yeah.
Yeah, this is still around the time where they would utilize they built giant sets.
Right. I think that was one of the things I was just flabbergasted by. It's just the scale of it, and because it was before modern movie making techniques. They actually practically built a lot of the sets. The huge what is it? The huge Coliseum and the chariot racetrack and what essentially was the streets of Jerusalem. It was I was in awe of what they did.
Yeah,
And these are these are like true epics in the literal sense of the word, epics.
Yeah, it's definitely a time in film that is way it's done. Like you're never going to see something like this again.
I mean, because one, it'd be the cost to do such thing nowadays is astronomical.
Yeah.
But I mean, and two, it's just because progress happens. Film making techniques have improved, and we've gotten to the point where we're able to do these amazing things with green screen and computer generated graphics. So building practical sets is not a non-starter, but man, you really do kind of lose something when you don't do when you don't do practical things.
Yeah, it's it's kind of like we can lament that's a time gone by, but I choose I like to go back and just watch those and just man, that would have been really cool to see how they put this all together, and it must have been it's just nuts. It felt like the one thing I like about that stuff is you feel like you're there. It's not you're not in a movie. You're actually there with the characters in that time period or whatever world that they're creating.
Right. It seems it's very immersive. It's like you're no longer watching the movie, but you're just experiencing it. You're I mean, it'd be kind of imagining, kind of creating the world as you're reading a book.
Exactly. So there's a couple of things that I noted about the film that I think are pretty interesting. There are some things that I was thinking of. I like that. So for people who have never seen this, and they're watching it at first, it starts off of the story of the birth of Christ, which is wait a second, I thought we were talking about Ben-Hur, Judah Ben-Hur. Why are we talking about Jesus? But the reason that was put in there is they were trying. Judah Ben-Hur was juxtaposed along with Jesus because they're around the same age, and there's even like later on in the film, there's a character who is looking for the Messiah, and when he sees Judah Ben-Hur at first, he's like, "Are you him? No, you're not him." And it's
Right,
like
because he asked, like, "Are you from Nazareth?" And wasn't he one of the wise men?
yes, I think he was.
Right, because he's like, "Oh, I was there at his birth, and I wanted to see him, again." I
So
think,
yeah, so there is like this comparison to Judah Ben-Hur with Christ. So there is like kind of that comparison, and it also kind of tells the tale of like what's of that time, age, giving you the time period that this movie is set in by showing the birth of Christ, and like in Judea, and so you kind of get an idea as to what's happening from seeing that. And the other thing that's I found pretty interesting about the film is I couldn't help but thinking of the story of Joseph, uh, along with Ben-Hur, and how
right,
he was against his will. He was thrust. He went from being very rich and prominent,
right.
and
He was considered a prince of the Jews. He came from a really well-off family, um, and then because of of jealousy or just a hard heart. One of his best friend growing up, a Roman. Because he wouldn't go along with his plans. Betrays his friend. And actually, there. I mean, not just like the biblical kind of references. I felt there was a lot of other literary motifs that I found in this story, particularly the Count of Monte Cristo.
that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, yeah, there.
But the whole kind of like parallel, kind of telling the parallel stories of Judah Ben-Hur and Jesus, it kind of felt like a little bit like Forrest Gump.
How do you make that comparison?
Well, it's just like kind of like similarly in the way that Forrest Gump is part of like these historic events. Almost similarly, Judah Ben-Hur is as well.
Okay, yeah, I can see
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Like one, like where they like their paths like intersect. Where when he's just about to be carted off to the galleys, and Jesus gives him a drink, and then when and then towards like going towards the latter half of the second act, and Judah Ben-Hur is there when Jesus gives his famous Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes.
Yeah, that's right. I almost forgot about that scene. It's like, yeah, he was there to witness the Sermon on the Mount.
Mm-hmm. And then of course he was there at the end at his crucifixion. So I'm not saying like it's a direct one-to-one comparison, but it's kind of like a similar aspect.
Right. Yeah. You see, there is that similarity. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, you have like the biblical elements, you have the cinematic elements that are there.
Mm-hmm.
It's got it all, man.
Mm-hmm.
And doing some after I watched it, doing some. Well, this is probably like the third or fourth time I've watched this movie,
Mm-hmm.
but the reading up about it. So this was I forget who the author was, but this is actually a book from the 19th century, the story of Judah Ben-Hur, that this was adapted from. And this particular version of Ben-Hur is a remake of a silent film from 1925 of the same name. And a lot of the epics that we'll eventually talk about, I find a lot of them are actually remakes of these old silent films. Because whenever we get to like the Ten Commandments, that was a remake of a silent film. So there's a few of Hitchcock's films that like he remade some of his own films that were silent films, stuff like that.
The author of Ben-Hur: A Tale of Christ was Lew Wallace.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it was published in November 12th, 1880.
I'm actually kind of curious to maybe like take a look at that, read it, and see how that book is. See like how close the movie matches up to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this movie is great. Yeah, I mean, of course, Charlton Heston brings it in his acting performance. I think everyone does. From like the guy who plays his best friend, Masala.
Yeah.
To
and then you have was like Esther was a great character.
Mm-hmm.
Simonides.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Who is the guy that ended up adopting Ben-Hur? That Roman soldier that he saved.
Yeah, the consul. Let me see. I think it was Quintus Arius. Quintus Arius, played by Jack Hawkins.
Yeah, when I think about this film, so you have the great soundtrack. You have great acting.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack was great.
I mean, there's several different acts to the film, but like this, not only is this like considered the epic, which is, but it's, this really did feel kind of like a stage play or an opera almost that you're watching,
right?
And it's, I mean, obviously you even get that with like when it starts, you have the entrance music, and you have the intermission,
right,
and the epilogue.
Yeah, that intro was freaking long, dude. I kind of had to skip forward.
Well, here's the thing: is like it harkens, doing that, it harkens back to like I said, to the old
right, the stage plays, and like gives people time to like file in and get their seats and all that.
Or even going to like back to the silent era, when there would be like an organist or a band that would be playing music to go along with the movie itself. So it harkens back to like all that. And like another movie that had that too was we watched was it The Man Who Knew Too Much? We had opened up with the band playing, and
hey, there was another one that we watched.
It might have been
like around the same time period.
Oh, Spartacus.
Yes, that's right, Spartacus.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had like one of those long intro tracks as well. It was good. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
very long.
I like stuff because you have a great soundtrack, you have great acting, you have the set design and the immersive experience that it creates. Yeah, and then along with the story itself is you're going on this long journey along with Judah Ben-Hur, and when he struggles, you're struggling along with him, and and when he makes his way back, it's like you're torn because you want him to get his revenge, yet at the same time, it's you're like you see him. The one thing that I like about Ben-Hur's character is you see him go from um, this very wealthy, magnanimous person, very an influence in his community, to beaten down slave who he he's accused mainly because he's accused of a crime he didn't do, yet like Joseph, every opportunity he makes, he tries to make like the good righteous decision. And when Quintus Arius is like, when he kind of snuck up on him, it's like, you could have killed me if you wanted to. It's like, that's not why I'm here. It's, and you start to see that trust build with between him and Arius.
Right, because I think because Arius starts kind of respecting him as a man, because before, like, there was this, because he would constantly refer to him as his number instead of his name, which is 41. So he was like, oh, 41, why you do, what are you doing here? Or 41, why do you work so hard? It wasn't until he Ben-Hur, Judah Ben-Hur, demonstrates his character in saving his life, um, that that he ultimately acknowledges him, and then also he demonstrates his character in when the emperor gives Arius Judah Ben-Hur as his slave. And he then begins his career as a chariot racer, and then demonstrating his character on the racetrack to the point where he ends up adopting Judah Ben-Hur into his family.
Right. Oh, and here's the other thing too is because you have Quintus Arius and then you have Messala, and Messala was trying to get Judah to kind of compromise himself, compromise his community, and it's like, we'll take you, we'll rule this area, we'll make it right, and you'll become a Roman citizen and all this stuff. But like there was all this compromise that would have had to have taken place, whereas with Quintus Arius, he was able to keep his dignity. He never compromised himself, and he still became a Roman citizen at the end. And so like you see like where the you kind of see like Quintus Arius and Messala are kind of, you can see the contrast between those two characters as well, where at least Quintus Arius is a much more righteous man.
Right, and I think it definitely lends like lets like, oh, not all Romans are painted with the same brush. It's like they're just like everywhere. There's they're good people and they're assholes.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that Quintus Arius, like, he kept his word, and he gave his he recommended for the emperor to to not like to give him his freedom, like that he was accused of this crime. He essentially pardoned him because like of this crime that like he did not do. Whereas Messala just like he kind of let him, he lied and didn't despite knowing the truth, like he let him and his family go into slavery or prison. So like I said, lots of no matter where you look, there's depth to like all the characters. There's depth to the story. It's oh man, it's great.
Couldn't agree with you more.
And I think of all the roles that we've seen thus far with Charlton Heston, this is definitely his best.
Agreed. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, so far, what we've seen, I think, I think Ben-Hur was his absolute peak.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have a few more films to go, and that he's been in a lot of films. So I mean, this
All right,
opinion
this is
might
a very
change, but
small sample size.
right. But as of this moment, I would say this is one of his best. This is my favorite performance of his, and might be his best.
Just quickly, I would like to mention that kind of in like the spirit of how I think we coined the term cinematic archaeology, and like I just remember it's one of those things where I knew that I saw these scenes before, and like the scene like when he's like rowing in the galley in the Roman ship, and then also the chariot racing scenes. They're all very they're all like cultural like touchstones for me, in that I saw them but growing up. Funny enough, in like TV shows like Muppet Babies.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think Muppet Babies was really unique in that it used like actual footage from like movies, and tied it into the cartoon.
Right. Like when they were imagining things, like they would imagine like these scenes from movies, and that was like their
Exactly.
imagination. Like you had stuff like like the Star Wars, Little Shop of Horrors.
That's right.
Ben-Hur, Indiana Jones, like you name it. Like it was.
Yeah.
And like the other thing too is like there's because I always go back to the Simpsons. Like the Simpsons use so many different like parodies of Ben-Hur like throughout like various episodes. Like you have
Oh yeah, like the film festival one where Mr. Burns
he essentially creates his version of Ben-Hur like with him as
yeah, in the Jesus role. And he has Charlton Heston, Judah Ben-Hur character. It's like you really are the King of Kings.
the what was it, the other one? It's the I'm forgetting the title of the episode, but it's the soapbox derby race where it's like the race between like him and Bart and Nelson. It's the parodies the chariot race with
That's right. Yeah,
Masala.
because that's right. Because Nelson has those.
The spiked wheels.
Yeah, and he chews up like the side of Martin's racer.
Right.
Yeah, I think they actually use. I don't know if they did. Tell me if I'm wrong. But do they use the sound, like some of the soundtrack, or am I just misremembering that?
Oh, I might have to. I think in the one with the film festival, I think they do use like, some sort of version
Right.
of the soundtrack.
But in the
Like
soapbox derby one.
I have to go back and see on that one because I haven't seen that episode in a little while, so I might have to. I'll go back and watch it, and maybe I'll let you know.
Okay.
But sorry, I wanted to a point that I wanted to finish up though with the progression of Ben-Hur's character. Like I said, he goes from that prominent noble in his community to slave, and once but he's like through his time of slavery, he has this. Once Masala betrays him, he has this rage in him that he's like he wants vengeance, and actually to the point where the vengeance like it ate at him, and the woman that he loved, Esther, was saying, "It's like you're working so hard for this vengeance and this hate that you have, and you're becoming Masala essentially, and you're becoming just like him." And you start to see like where and this goes back to the how the him and Christ are compared throughout this film, and you see how through hearing from the characters around Judah Ben-Hur who are affected by Christ's teachings and all this stuff, and it's like to let go of that stuff, to love, even to love your enemy. And and through you start to see the softening of his heart and him becoming going from a Jew to becoming a believer in Christ, which it culminates at the end where after the crucifixion, his his mom, his sister who contracted leprosy, they were healed because of Christ, and it's like after he saw Christ kind of carrying his cross, he recognized him and gave him water just as Christ had given to him all those years before.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I think Christ obviously recognized him and used his power to bring healing to his family, because he probably saw everything that Judas had gone through, his heart, all that stuff.
Right.
And
yeah, it's interesting because just before Christ gives the Sermon on the Mount, Judah Ben-Hur is talking to what was this? Some Simonides. He was like, and he was talking about that time before he was about to be, carted off to the galleys. Someone gave him a drink. He was talking about how it wasn't, it didn't fulfill him, and he's like still thirsty. And I couldn't help but think about what Jesus said about how people who drink from me will never be thirsty again.
Right.
But I mean, I think because even though Jesus was physically giving him water, Ben-Hur wasn't able to receive the spiritual water because of his the hardening of his heart at that time.
Right. Like I said, no matter where you look in this film, you're going to find some sort of depth or, and this is one of those films that I can't recommend highly enough, and you got to go watch it for yourself.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts from you, Andy? That you want to bring up, or?
No, that's all I have to say about the movie.
Shall we give our ratings then?
Yes, we shall.
All right, I'll go first.
All right, go for it.
5 stars.
5 stars. Okay.
Yeah, this, like I said, this has everything. You got great soundtrack, great set design, great cinematography, great characters. It's got everything.
Okay.
A rare 5-star for me.
A rare 5-star for you.
Actually, to the point, this actually might be my number 6, film, sixth favorite.
It's the
film.
It's the sixth man in your top 5. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna give this a 4.5. Fair, completely fair. Not that I'm mostly I'm mostly nitpicking, and even the nitpicks aren't even that bad. But yeah, there's 4.5. Still a great movie. Still highly recommended.
You're going to hell, Andy.
I'm going to hell. It's how dare you offend our Lord? But yeah, that's our review for Ben-Hur. Robert gives it a 5. I give it a 4. I give it a 4.5. Definitely recommend watching this. It's but again, carve yourself out a good amount of time, because this movie is over 3 hours.
And don't worry, there is an intermission. They'll tell you as you're watching it.
There is an intermission. So again, I admitted it. I at the outset that I had to, or I don't think I admitted it while we were live, but I admitted to Rob that I actually had to watch this in 2 different parts because it was so long.
Right.
And I didn't have enough. And I didn't have enough. I didn't give myself enough time to watch the whole thing in one sitting. But yeah, that was our review of Ben-Hur. Watch it. Get in the comment section and let us know what you thought of it. Whether you liked it, didn't like it, where you thought our review was off or biased or whatever. Just leave it there in the comment section. What was that?
I was saying, or if we missed something.
Oh yeah, if we also because again this was a over 3-hour movie, so we could have easily left something out that you might have thought it was important. All right, well that's all we have for you tonight. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday around 8-ish p.m. Sometimes live. Don't forget to sometimes. Don't forget to check out the library of other shows that we have. Circle Electric's main podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Rob's gaming show, Up by Uptown. Don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts: Twitter @PodcastCOJ and Instagram @CircleElectricsPodcast. That's where we put behind the scenes stuff, make announcements, what have you. So do please give us a follow, and we'll follow back.
Always.
All right. And so for Robert and myself, we say thank you again, and we'll see you next week. Don't do anything I would.